I think while we remain richer than the nations and the people we exploited, there's still something wrong. And the fact it's very obvious that it was cheaper to work an adult. Their average life was 4 years of an adult after arriving from Africa. 2.5 million people in Britain are directly connected to the wealth that was engendered by enslavement.
What was the most shocking thing that you found in research for the book and going back through either your history or just the history of slave trade and such in general? Was there anything that you were just like, wow, like really stuck out to you?
Trigger warning people, and I do in talks, but you see very clearly that my ancestors, who called themselves Christians and liberals for the time, they were members of the Liberal Party, believed they had Thomas Paine's Rights of Man on their bookshelves, but they did not believe people with black skins were human. And you read lists of the enslaved people with their values, and right beside the list, the children is, I mean, there's one I've got from 1774 where it says little Johnny, who's 8 years old, is worth £40, and Caroline is worth, they were given these absurd English names, is worth £12. But right next to, on the same page, is the list of the cattle and the horses and their values. And you see a small child is worth 2 cows. And that really, I mean, there's more brutal things,
Yeah.
much more brutal things, particularly when you get into, just how many people died every year. And the fact it's very obvious that it was cheaper to work an adult. Their average life was 4 years of an adult after arriving from Africa, and it was much more brutal in that sense than in the cotton plantations in the southern states. It was cheaper to work a person to death than buy another one.
So when
Look
you,
after them.
oh yeah, so when you release a book like this, I'm sure you also get a varying amount of responses. So then I'm also curious, what was kind of the most shocking response or feedback you kind of got after the release?
Well, I think I was very innocent, actually. I mean, I kind of thought that most people would be shocked and interested, and I got an uh, extraordinary bite back, really blowback from people like me. From there was a big article about the book in the London Times newspaper, interview with me, and so on. With very a very positive journalist. But I opened the online version of the paper the next morning and started reading the comments under the line, and there were 500, and they were all, you know, shut up, you liar. What do black people expect? I mean, this is before the moderator had got in there and taken out the overtly racist ones. But the other side of that was, the beginnings of many conversations with people I would never have met otherwise, activists, anti-racism activists, equality, poverty, reparations activists. Often I think when you write a book, you learn more after you published it than when you were writing it, because these conversations started in the way, as I'm talking to you, and that's been an incredible privilege, and I'm still learning. So it was. Yeah, I'm a journalist. I like causing trouble, but I had no idea that the trouble that was going to cause it, or just how vicious and
Yeah.
cruel it
I
was.
can only imagine. I get plenty of it with my YouTube channel, so I can only imagine having a published book and news articles and all of that. What would come with it? You mentioned reparations, and actually, the
Yeah.
last two questions I had, I kind of wanted to ask you about those. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on reparations, and then if you supported them or disagreed with them, and then if you did support them, like what? Because everyone has their own view. I feel like what would they look like to you?
Well, I think the first thing is from the beginning. It's not for me to say what
Yeah.
reparations should be like. It's for the descendants of those who were enslaved and and who still suffer the consequences. So I listen, and I support the Caribbean nations, the CARICOM 14, the call they put out to the European governments for cash, and other forms of reparation. Absolutely, to the hilt. I think while we remain richer than the nations and the people we exploited, there's still something wrong. But I think reparations takes many forms. I mean, we try as a group, the heirs, to be led by what black people tell us to do. or to
Yeah.
say, or where they feel, sorry, I mean, it's the wrong word, but I mean, where we try to lend support where it's asked for, where we're told it might be useful, and not impose our views, because I mean, we've been doing that for too long.
And to end, kind of just as a chance to preempt the comments that I'm sure will come, what would your response be to those who would inevitably say, kind of as we touched on, oh, I've never owned a slave, or, no one today has ever been a slave, or, we've given them this or that, like whatever the kind of pushback would be, what would your response kind of be for that?
Well, I mean, I worked out, or scholars have worked out that about 2.5 million people in Britain are directly connected to the wealth that was engendered by enslavement. And the many industries, the shipbuilding, the gun making. Remember, it's not like being a southern cotton farmer. I mean, our families bought ships, sent them to West Africa, raped and pillaged and stole from West Africa, stole the people, took, traded, the ramifications are huge. There's no part of the modern British economy that's not touched by the huge wealth that came out of that. So it it is all of us. And if you are British, it's necessary and good to acknowledge that. Um, did that answer the question? I'm not sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then quickly before I let you go, if you have like a last message, if you want to shout out like a website, any new books, projects, anything like that, you can go ahead and the floor's yours.
Yeah, I mean, do look us up, heirsofslavery.org. That's the organization we've set up to try and help other people come forward and maybe start their own act of reparation. And that we've got groups now starting in other European countries, which is cool. I mean, Spain, France, they've all got their own stories of enslaving African people. So, have a look at that, contact us via that, sign up to our newsletter. I mean, my book, I wouldn't recommend my book. I think it's pretty. I mean, a lot of the black friends have read it and gone, I really wish I hadn't because it's horrible. But so I'm not going to plug that. But I should say, I mean, I don't take any money from that book. All the proceeds from it I've put into charitable donations because it would be very wrong for me to profit from my ancestors' history. But the book is there. I mean, it's called Blood Legacy. It's available on Amazon, Kindle, and so on as ever.
I think that is very noble of you. And if anyone did want to check it out, hearing what we've talked about, I will have it linked in the description. So be sure to check that out. I do want to thank you again for lending your time and knowledge and history to us. I think it was a wonderful conversation, and we'd love to have you back on sometime.
Oh, Brandon, thanks so much. It was a pleasure. Good
Awesome. And
luck.
yep, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, or I guess evening, probably for you
Yeah,
too.
yeah, no, it's 9 o'clock here. Yeah.
Well, have a nice evening, my friend.